pick up the phone and actually use the human voice and say, I'm Jill Lublin. I'm calling about the story on kindness. We have World Kindness Day coming up in November 13th. And I wrote this book called The Profit of Kindness. What I've noticed is that in the world today, we have a lot less kindness and a lot more division. And I think we need to talk about that. Did you hear that pitch? It was a simple pitch. It incorporated what I'm talking to them about. It established that I'm an author of The Profit of Kindness. It's talking about an exact holiday called World Kindness Day with a date specific, right?
Welcome to the Social Media Takeaway. I'm your host, Louise McDonnell, and this is the show for business people that want to know how to use social media more effectively to drive sales and leads for their business. If you enjoy the show, please make sure you subscribe. And if you know any friends or business colleagues who may benefit from this episode, please make sure that you share it with them. I am delighted to be welcomed by Jill Lublin. Jill is an expert for over 25 years in everything to do with PR and the media. And she is a 4 times best-selling author, and she has shared the stages with superstars, including herself, all over the world. You're very welcome to the show, Jill.
Thank you. Delighted to be here with you.
I know the topic that we want to talk about is also the topic of your book, Guerrilla Publicity. Tell us what that's about.
Guerrilla publicity is about getting your name out there, creating visibility without spending a fortune, right? That's always a good thing. So how can you have impact and influence and get people noticing you? That's what we zoom in on with guerrilla publicity, so that you really are able to create that impact and attract also, of course, your wonderful clients and referrals, connections, and have people know you, which is what publicity does.
And so publicity obviously is broader than just the mainstream media. For somebody who's listening in who thinks that maybe publicity, they think, okay, publicity, PR, that's like mainstream media. Do you want to maybe just explain what your interpretation of that is?
Sure. I got a big, broad definition of publicity, and that is it happens from the minute you walk out your door. Guess what you're doing? Publicity, whether you're in a Zoom room, whether you're being interviewed, whether you're in a coffee shop, guess what? You are still always representing your business. So, yes, I believe that it also, of course, is mainstream media as well as blogs and podcasts. Your social media has to be congruent with your message. That is all publicity. The reality is, what's your message and why should people care? That's what I like to say. So, it's happening all the time, whether you like it or not. So let's get conscious about it and be focused about it and have it be resonant to who you are and congruent with what you want to say in the world.
Fantastic. Now, I know one of the things I help businesses to get very clear on is like what their core offer is and what their messaging is around that. I presume this is the foundation of what you need to know in order to get your guerrilla publicity working on behalf of your brand. Do you want to talk a little bit through the steps that you take people through when you start working with them?
Absolutely. And it's similar, but mine's for media focus, which of course social media is a media. So what I love to help people with is your message. And your message is really about the fact that people will interview you because you have an expertise. I'm here on the show with Louise, thank you, because I have an expertise in publicity. All of you have an expertise. The question is, what is it? And then we want to look at what's the problem today? What's the problem out there? And when we look at that, we also want to know, you being the expert, what's your solution? I like to tell you to give 3, actually tell people what to do, just like we're doing right now. You want to give value and benefit, and you want to actually tell people what to do. I find, Louise, that a lot of people make a mistake in putting their message out because you use I statements, right? Our company, we do this, I do this. That's nice. But the truth is, your client cares about themselves, understandably. So you got to speak in you language. It makes a big difference and really helps people out a lot more to understand how you are going to help them. And with media, they can say yes to you because, oh, you're giving value and benefit to others.
Yeah, sometimes I think that when businesses or brands are thinking about how they can get publicity, that they think if they just tell the media about a product or a new service that they're launching, it needs to be more than that, Jill, doesn't it? Because I think the media, they're not that, as you said, they're not interested in the brand or the solution, but they want the story behind it. So, if somebody wants to obviously get some publicity for a new product or service that they're launching or relaunching, or maybe they launch it a few times a year, how can they go beyond just talking about themselves to actually get the attention of the media?
So, great question. It's not about your product, your service, your book, your launch, whatever it is that you got. But here's the fun dance about publicity. It's all about your product, your service, your launch. And the way to get that promoted is to find that problem. And then sometimes you got to get a little, well, imaginative and creative, right? So, one of the things that I've been very successful with my clients at, number one, is finding the right message, because that's always a key. And I think people get too attached to this is what I do versus this is how it helps people, right? So I just want to remind you about that. Number two, the really great thing that helps really get you in media, and this is a fun strategy that most people don't employ, is to use everything you've got. What do I mean by that? If you're Hispanic, go into Hispanic Heritage Month. I have a client, she's a communication coach, and we were doing fabulous messaging for how to communicate better in business. Terrific. Then Black History Month happens. She's the Black woman. We do a whole different story on how to be a powerful Black woman and communicate well in today's times. Let me tell you, that got her into Black Enterprise Magazine, Essence Magazine, places and spaces that she was not getting into being a business communication coach. So I think that's a very expanded way for many of you to look at, wow, there are whole new ways that we can get into the media, get into the press, and start doing things that are much more powerful and able to create that visibility factor that gets you noticed, seen, and heard. So I want you to start using everything you've got.
Okay, you've come up with an angle. This is what I'm going to use to get into the media. How do you go about approaching the media? It's always changing. And as technology changes and as we get busier and as there's more AI and more of everything now, how do you actually stand out and get a journalist or somebody in that department to notice you?
Yeah, so let me just tell you, by the way, I've been reading a lot of articles about AI. And of course, it's here to stay. And we all know that publicity actually gets you generated AI attention, which is interesting just to note, and all kinds of scientific background, most of which I don't understand to verify that position. But I will tell you that standing out in a crowded market is about finding that. I'll call it that gem, that call it push the right button, right? So, yeah, I got a new book out, The Profit of Kindness. That's nice. Another book, great. And I'm proud of it. Mama's proud of it. But truthfully, that's not the story. The story was the division. We got a lot of stuff going on these days. So the truth is, you can talk about different pieces because the media welcomes diverse opinions. Most other things are you, us, the experts, talking about different pieces. And so you want to be the one who delivers a great message, a connection, the power of what you're promoting, so to speak, but sometimes done through a side door, through a different door. Let me just tell you, every time you're in the media, guess what happens? You're being seen, you're being heard, you're driving people to your wonderful opportunity for people, right? That's what matters. So that when they're Googling you and finding you, guess what comes up? All the media, no matter what you're talking about. And that is a beautiful thing. That's what I want for people. So you get in whatever way you can. And that's the part. I always want people to expand their mindset about what's possible to get into media. And let me just tell you, there are many things that are possible, including your ethnicity, your religion, where you're from, all kinds of wonderful things.
I'm going to give a big plug now for my planner because my planner does all those special days day by day. So every day of the year, you can sit down and there's at least one special day every day. But I would imagine you're going to say a lot of this comes from planning in advance. So if you wake up and it's National Love Your Cat Day and you have a lovely cat story, it's too late. When do you want to be pitching that story? Is it the week before? Is it the month before? How far in advance do you
Big.
pitch the
Well,
story?
I'm so glad you asked this because, yes, you do not pitch it on the day of, although in very rare circumstances, you might slide it through. But you typically want to do, I like to say, plant your publicity garden and think about now, you're planting some seeds now, and then 3, 6, 9 months ahead. I tend to like that timeline because it works. So thinking like a year, put in a year, look at your planner, right? Look at Louise's planner. And this day, 3 months ahead, is National Cat Day. When you're planning specifically for holidays, making sure that every media is hit. But you know what? They've been on it for 3 months now. So we want to draw bigger attention. And this is always what I want people to get.
What's the bigger story? So go deeper. Go to something that the media will want to talk about because they won't want to speak about you. They want to speak about the topic. Now, so anyone listening in here, they're thinking, okay, 3 months, 6 months, I'm going to start doing my planning. Can you reach out to journalists through social media? Does that work? Or do you email them or do you ring them or what?
In guerrilla publicity, we talk about the rule of seven contacts, and most people are giving up after two. Yes, reach out to them on social media, connect with them on pretty much often LinkedIn, but see where else they are and just say hi and that you're an expert in so, and here's what you got, and you want to connect with them. I do like email direct to them, absolutely. And then you know what else? Pick up the phone. Pick up the phone and actually use the human voice and say, I'm Jill Lublin. I'm calling about the story on kindness. We have World Kindness Day coming up in November 13th. And I wrote this book called The Profit of Kindness. What I've noticed is that in the world today, we have a lot less kindness and a lot more division. And I think we need to talk about that. Did you hear that pitch? It was a simple pitch. It incorporated what I'm talking to them about. It established that I'm an author of The Profit of Kindness. It's talking about an exact holiday called World Kindness Day with a date specific, right? Now, that's great. I'll tell you though, almost every day has been a day where I could talk about lacking of kindness. I call them my PR antennas. I got my PR antennas up, and all of you need to have yours.
And then here's another thing I often wondered about as well, Jill. So, do you pitch exactly the same story to all the different news desks, or do you give them a slightly different variation, or do you give somebody exclusivity, or how do you decide all that?
First of all, you don't give it to them. They have to ask you, and then you decide. If it's some of the bigger players, I might consider it. But on the whole, exclusivity is not usually an issue. Let me just say, not in the game with entrepreneurs and small business owners, not usually. So I wouldn't be concerned about that. But is it the same pitch? No, it's a slightly different pitch. Listen, I've been in Inc. magazine and Forbes magazine twice now from The Profit of Kindness, talking about kindness in business. Great. That is a different story than what I was in Fox News for. So I would tell you, on the whole, it's a similar pitch with a slightly different nuance, depending on who you're talking to. If you're on a women's radio station, you're going to talk with regard to the impact of what you're doing with women. But if you're on a entrepreneur magazine, you're going to talk about your business with regard to entrepreneurs. That makes sense. So slightly different, but I always like to say have one basic like theme and then nuance it according to what's needed.
And the other thing to just because I know I have been involved in PR as well down through the years in various different parts of my career. And one thing I noticed that sometimes people expect that when they get, let's say they're covered on the national TV, and they expect that it's going to have this amazing spike in demand for their business. But I always think that it raises your awareness about you and that awareness stays at a heightened level for a longer time, more so than a spike.
Both things happen. The truth about publicity is it elevates your credibility and gets you seen, heard, and paid. And you walk in with a braggability factor. And by the way, braggability is important in a positive way that you've been featured in fill in the blank. And again, it can be from podcasts to blogs to TV, radio, magazines, newspapers. All of it's good. Social media lives in all the platforms. It's all media, my friends, and it all matters and it all counts. And let me tell you, not only are you seen differently, ooh, your credibility goes up. And let me suggest also that many times, like most of the time, I'd say 70 to 80% of the time, there are brilliant spikes in web visits. But I'm saying that's a big spike. These are great things that happen. And I do see consistent revenue being created. And yes, you also do it so that you have ongoing, what would I call it, foundational evidence that you are an expert. And media is the primary fabulous opportunity to do that so that people are talking about you and that you then can show that to your prospects, clients, and engage with people. You can use your publicity to publicize your publicity, right? So you can start bragging about your publicity that you were featured in. And that is a beautiful thing.
And Jill, do you think that not enough businesses think about just the publicity, like they just think about social media too much and not look going beyond that?
Can I just tell you, it's my bane of my existence. Louise, and I love social media. I do, and I believe in it, and I'm on it, and I think it's important, but it is not publicity. You must do publicity as a separate and focused activity, and then make sure that your social media is congruent, that your messaging is similar, and that one supports the other, of course. And the great news is you can use all of the things I told you about this morning to use on your social media platforms and brag there and leverage your publicity. One does support the other, but it is not social media. And frankly, it lasts a long time. The viability and credibility of your wonderful publicity lasts literally a lifetime. And that's a great thing.
Jill, I know your book is available. It's Guerrilla Publicity. That's the one we've been talking about more or less today. You can buy it on Amazon. I was checking it out earlier on, but I know you have a wonderful free gift that you want to offer all the listeners here today. Do you want to tell us a little bit about it?
Yes, I do. What I've done, and we've had a great time together. What I did was I put together a publicity action guide and gave you even more wonderful free publicity tips. And because I like to give a lot of gifts, there's a free publicity masterclass live and interactive with me where you get to ask questions. And I'm going to give you even more great publicity tips. So make sure to join that masterclass. Come with me live, and you can get it at jilllublin.com/guide.
Fantastic. And we'll put the link as well in the show notes and in all the different various links that will be associated with the show. Jill, thank you so much. That was so enjoyable. I really enjoyed the chat. And thank you so much for sharing your expertise. Of course, I can see the kindness coming through and the expertise of the Guerrilla Publicity. So thank you so much. That's it, everyone. That's another episode of the Social Media Takeaway. If you have some feedback, make sure that you tag us on social media. You'll find me under Sell on Social M, or on LinkedIn, you'll find me under Louise McDonnell. I'd love to hear your feedback and what you thought about the show. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss out on any future episodes. And if you know anyone who may be interested, be sure to share the show with them too. Thanks, everyone.